People who go silent when they are sad often experience emotions in a very internalized way. Instead of processing feelings through conversation, they turn inward, letting emotions settle quietly inside them. Silence becomes a natural response, not because they lack thoughts, but because their thoughts feel too heavy or tangled to release. Speaking may seem exhausting or even impossible when sadness drains emotional energy and clarity. For many, silence offers a sense of safety during emotional vulnerability. Talking can feel like standing exposed, while silence creates a protective barrier. Sadness can make people fear being misunderstood or minimized, and remaining quiet feels like a way to preserve emotional integrity. In this state, silence is not avoidance but self-preservation. Some individuals associate silence with emotional regulation. When sadness hits, they instinctively withdraw to prevent emotional overflow. Words might come out too sharp, too emotional, or too revealing, so they choose stillness instead. This withdrawal allows them to regain balance before interacting with others again. Silence can also be learned behavior shaped by early experiences. People who grew up in environments where emotions were ignored, dismissed, or punished may learn that staying quiet is safer than expressing pain. Over time, silence becomes an automatic response to sadness, deeply ingrained and difficult to change. Sadness often slows cognitive processes, making verbal expression harder. People may struggle to organize their thoughts or find language that accurately represents what they feel. Silence then becomes a temporary pause, giving the mind time to catch up with the heart. It is less about refusal to speak and more about needing space to process. There is also a strong connection between silence and emotional depth. Individuals who feel deeply may require solitude to fully experience their sadness. External conversation can feel intrusive when they need to sit with their emotions privately. Silence allows them to honor their feelings without interruption. For some, silence is a way of maintaining dignity. Expressing sadness openly may feel like a loss of control or strength. Remaining quiet allows them to manage how they are perceived by others, especially in cultures or environments that value emotional restraint. Silence can function as an unspoken message. Even without words, sadness can be communicated through body language, distance, and tone. People who go silent may unconsciously hope others will sense their pain without forcing them to explain it. At times, silence reflects emotional exhaustion. Sadness can drain motivation, making even simple conversations feel overwhelming. The effort required to talk, explain, or reassure others may feel far beyond what they can give in that moment. Ultimately, silence during sadness is often misunderstood. It is rarely a sign of indifference or emotional coldness. More often, it is a deeply personal coping mechanism rooted in vulnerability, sensitivity, and the need for emotional safety. When sadness appears, many people instinctively turn inward. Emotional withdrawal allows them to focus on internal processing without external distractions. Silence creates a mental space where feelings can surface naturally, without pressure to perform or explain. Inner processing through silence often involves reflection. People replay events, analyze emotions, and search for meaning in what they feel. Speaking too soon can interrupt this process, pulling them outward before they are ready. Silence gives thoughts time to mature. Some individuals fear that verbalizing sadness will make it feel more real or permanent. Keeping quiet allows them to contain the emotion until it feels more manageable. In this sense, silence is a temporary holding space for pain. Emotional withdrawal can also be a response to overstimulation. Sadness heightens sensitivity, making noise, conversation, and social interaction feel overwhelming. Silence reduces sensory input and helps calm the nervous system. There is often a desire to avoid burdening others. People who go silent may worry that sharing their sadness will create discomfort or responsibility for those around them. By staying quiet, they protect others while carrying the weight themselves. Silence can serve as a form of emotional honesty. Rather than forcing positivity or casual conversation, individuals choose quiet as a more authentic response to how they truly feel. This honesty may not be verbal, but it is deeply felt. For many, inner processing requires solitude. Being alone allows emotions to rise and fall naturally, without interruption or influence. Silence supports this solitude, creating a private emotional environment. Emotional withdrawal is sometimes mistaken for rejection. In reality, it often has nothing to do with others and everything to do with self-regulation. The silence is inward-facing, not outward-directed. People who rely on inner processing often emerge from silence with greater clarity. Once emotions are understood internally, they may feel more capable of expressing them later. Silence, then, becomes part of a larger emotional cycle. Understanding this pattern requires patience from others. Silence during sadness is not a wall, but a bridge being built internally, piece by piece, toward emotional understanding. Silence during sadness is frequently misinterpreted in relationships. Partners, friends, or family members may assume disinterest, anger, or emotional distance. This misunderstanding can create tension, even though the silence itself is rooted in vulnerability. People who go silent may struggle to explain their behavior, especially if they do not fully understand it themselves. This can deepen relational gaps, as others seek reassurance while the silent person seeks space. In many cases, silence is an attempt to prevent conflict. When emotions are raw, speaking may lead to arguments or emotional outbursts. Staying quiet feels like the safer option, even if it creates temporary distance. Relationships often demand verbal communication, which can make silent sadness especially challenging. Those who process emotions quietly may feel pressured to talk before they are ready, increasing emotional stress. Healing begins with mutual understanding. When silence is recognized as a coping mechanism rather than a rejection, relationships can become more compassionate. Space and patience allow the silent person to process emotions without fear. Learning to balance silence and communication is an important part of emotional growth. While silence can be helpful, complete withdrawal over long periods may lead to isolation. Gentle expression, even in small doses, can strengthen connection. People who go silent often benefit from environments where emotions are welcomed without force. Knowing they can speak when ready reduces the need to withdraw completely. Self-awareness also plays a role in healing. Understanding why silence feels necessary helps individuals communicate their needs more clearly, even if they remain quiet in the moment. Silence does not mean emotions are absent. Often, it means emotions are being felt deeply and carefully. Recognizing this can transform how sadness is handled within relationships. In the end, silence and sadness are not enemies of connection. When understood with empathy, silence becomes another emotional language, one that speaks softly but carries profound meaning. Silence during sadness is often deeply tied to a person's sense of identity. For many individuals, being quiet is not just a reaction but part of who they are emotionally. They may see themselves as private, introspective, or self-contained, and silence feels aligned with their inner world. Speaking about sadness can feel like stepping outside their authentic self, while quiet reflection feels natural and grounding. People who value emotional independence often choose silence as a way to maintain autonomy. Sharing sadness can feel like handing control over their inner state to someone else. Silence allows them to own their emotions fully, without outside interpretation, advice, or judgment. This sense of ownership can be crucial for emotional stability. There is also a strong link between silence and self-protection. Sadness makes people emotionally exposed, and silence acts as a shield against potential hurt. Words can be questioned, misunderstood, or used against someone later, but silence feels safer and irreversible. In this way, quiet becomes a boundary rather than a wall. Many individuals who go silent fear emotional invalidation. Past experiences of being told to get over it, being compared to others, or having their pain minimized can teach them that speaking up is risky. Silence then becomes a learned strategy to avoid further emotional injury. It is not distrust of others but caution shaped by memory. Silence can also preserve emotional clarity. When sadness is raw, external opinions can blur personal understanding. People may worry that listening to others too soon will distort what they truly feel. By staying quiet, they give themselves time to define their emotions on their own terms. For some, silence is tied to emotional pride. They may believe that handling sadness internally shows strength or maturity. Expressing pain outwardly might feel like failure or weakness, especially if they were taught to be resilient or self-sufficient. Silence then becomes a symbol of endurance. Identity-based silence is often misunderstood as emotional distance. In reality, these individuals may feel deeply connected to others while still needing solitude to process pain. Their quiet does not mean they care less. It means they care so intensely that they must retreat to protect that emotional depth. There is also an element of emotional pacing. People who go silent may know that once they start talking, emotions will pour out uncontrollably. Silence allows them to slow the process, releasing feelings gradually instead of all at once. It is a way of regulating emotional intensity. Healing for these individuals does not mean forcing constant expression. It means learning when silence serves them and when it begins to isolate them. Emotional growth happens when silence is chosen consciously, not automatically, and when communication becomes an option rather than a threat. Ultimately, Silence as self-protection is not emotional absence, but emotional wisdom shaped by experience. When respected and understood, it becomes a powerful tool for self-regulation, identity preservation, and long-term emotional health.